All right. We are going to do something super cool and bring in a bunch of Pro Tool workflows and integrate them into Camtasia so we can make this super sweet lens flare asset, device frame asset. That's the task. What are we going to use to do this? First off, a vector illustration app. My weapon of choice these days is Sketch app. Great software makers really love this app. I've got a simple vector shape that's had a little bit of path manipulation done to it. So I've got that selected, and that's important. You want to select the thing that you want to grab, and we want to get the path data here, because what we want to have happen is we want that lens flare to animate all the way around this path, right? So the way to do this, or at least the easiest way to do this, is to use a plugin, AEUX, made by some really sharp motion graphics folks at Google. So we're going to open up that plugin panel, and what we're going to do first is we're going to flatten this down into a single path, right? So one path object, closed path, and then we're just going to send it over to After Effects. And voila, a little bit goofed up on our alignment here, but After Effects has created a brand new composition called Path, and it's brought in that vector data from Sketch, right? So what do we do next? Well, first, we're going to go ahead and twizzle down the path, contents, path 1. I know it's a little ways down the hierarchy. So we're going to go ahead and Command C that path data. So you see all those points are selected. I just copied them. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new composition. And I'm just going to call this composition Flare. So it's called Flare. It's quite large, 3840 by 3840, to give us enough breathing room for those lens flare effects, and 60 frames a second. It's 2 seconds in duration. So we'll say OK. And I've just got an empty comp here. So we're going to remedy that by going to Layer, New Solid. And it's going to be just complete black, jet black in color, and default name. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another plugin for After Effects. This one is called, it's software made by Red Giant. So I'm going to use their RG Universe Stylize Knoll Light Factory plugin. And what this will do is generate a nice little lens flare for us if the preview ever updates. There it goes. All right, so you can see I'm just adjusting the current time indicator, playhead, or whatever you want to call it, and there's no animation here. So what we want to do is get path data for this lens flare to follow. So first things first, I'm going to just change a couple of this, just tweak a couple of things. They have a bunch of presets, and I kind of like the solid state one, right? So all right, I'm going to leave everything else alone. You can adjust the scale, brightness, other things. I will change the color, but we'll do that in a bit. So now that I've got that, what I want to do is twizzle down this solid. I applied the light factory effect, so we want to twizzle down and find it. And when we find it, we're going to look for something that looks like it might take path data. So light location, okay, it's got 2 values here. That looks like a good candidate for path data. And I'm just going to Command V, and you can see After Effects just auto-generates a bunch of keyframes for us right there, and supplies some animation. Default animation, all default here. All I did was copy and paste. All right, so you can already see that that guy kind of cruises around the screen right there, right? So this last keyframe here, I want to actually be 1 frame back. So I'm just going to grab that guy and move him over, snap him back. All right, looking pretty good. Now, back to Sketch. We're going to grab just some color info here. Just grab that hex color and come back into After Effects. We're going to go over into our effect controls up here because I have this layer and effect selected. I'm on effect controls, and I'm going to go into color, and I'm just going to paste into the hex field there this new set of colors. Okay, so there we've got some very almost Camtasia, like green, right? And sort of the final thing that we need to do here in After Effects is, well, actually a couple things. First off, what I'd like to do is I want this to be, all the black pixels to be transparent because I want to use this effect inside of Camtasia. And I guess I could use one of the luminosity invert modes if I wanted to, but I'm going to go right there, and that's just going to unmultiply everything. So the render alpha checkbox in the effect controls. And I'm feeling pretty good about this. So one pass through, this is one time, one lap around that iPhone path, right? All the little nooks and crannies of it. Goes down the notch, goes down the sides. All right, back to our project here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create another comp. And this one I'm going to call Flare. Well, actually, let's call this Looping Flare iPhone 11 Pro. Okay. And instead of it being 2 seconds long, what I want to do here is I'm just going to make this a full minute long. So let's go with 1.0.0. Is that right? I'll open back up my comp settings and just double check. Yeah, that looks right. Verifying the timeline. Boom. Okay. Again, completely empty. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that flare comp right here, this 2 second long comp, and drop it in here. And you can see it just does that one pass and then disappears, right? Okay, well, that's fine. What I really want, though, is I want some looping behavior all the way through the minute that we've got this new comp set up at. So I'm going to go ahead and context click and choose time, enable time remapping, and that generates a couple of keyframes. Next thing we're going to do is just go ahead and option click on the stopwatch of time remap. And in time remap, we're going to come over and choose the property, and we're going to do loop out cycle num keyframe 0. So let's try that. I'm going to leave the default expression there, and I'm just going to drag this guy out to the very end. And the next thing I'm going to do is cruise back to this keyframe. Where is this guy at? Right at 2 seconds. Okay. That seems right. Let's see what happens here. So I've got the one pass that I had, and then if things are going well here, we're just going to get looping behavior over and over and over, right? Which it looks like it's doing. So I'm going to back up. What I really want to be concerned about here is this just tail end of this loop. I want to make sure I have a pretty seamless transition into the front. You can see we flipped over. I couldn't notice anything just by the naked eye there. So let's try again. Yeah, that looks good. All right, so what you want to do right at this point is just go ahead and save your project. Let's say we're going to call this demo lens flare on a path. Maybe get another dash in there, and we'll go ahead and save. Okay. So we're done with this except for rendering it out. So what you want to do now is you want to select the appropriate comp in your project. You want to come up to composition, and we're going to go ahead and add to Adobe Media Encoder Render Queue. And it adds it in here, and it remembers my last default. So you need the ProRes codecs for this. You want to choose QuickTime as your type. here's the preset. I'm going to change the location of this. We're going to go and put it in exports. Save. We're going to go ahead and take a quick look at these properties, right? I'm in the video settings right here. You can pretty much, you want to make sure from the video codec, you've got Apple ProRes 4444. That's the one that allows alpha channel. And then down here, you want to make sure you never check this checkbox right here. In depth, you have two options. You can do 16-bit channel plus alpha or an 8-bit channel plus alpha. We'll try the 8-bit channel plus alpha for this one. And I'm going to also come down and check this box, which says use maximum render quality. It just will take a little bit longer to render, but give me better performance. And then there's no audio in this, but I'm still shooting out a stream, so we'll make sure it's Camtasia friendly 44.1. All right, so you're going to say okay at this point. And now it's time to go get a cup of coffee, take a short walk, because you're going to be doing some rendering. So we'll push start on the encoder and end this part of the tutorial for now. Okay, once that video has finished exporting out of Adobe Media Encoder, we're going to launch Camtasia and we're going to come over to the media bin and we'll just double click in here. Open up the file picker and we're just going to grab that ProRes file right there. It's a hefty one, so make sure you have storage, almost 8 gigabytes. So, and you can see it here in the preview window. There's our beautiful lens flare following that mask, iPhone mask path. And now it's time to start building the asset that we're going to use. So we're going to go into the library and I'm going to go up and find my device frames that I've built for this very purpose. And in the iPhone, there's a portrait, realistic. Grab it, drag it onto the timeline. Now you can see Camtasia scales it down by default because it's larger than the canvas. So you want to make sure you crank that back up to 100%. Just make sure you get the full resolution of this guy. You want it to be the exact size as that ProRes mask animation. We want to be centered in the very middle of the canvas. So we want to make sure that our XY coordinates are at 0, 0. And okay, now it's time to go get that ProRes file. Drag it down. Eek. I know what you're thinking. It's not looking very good. Again, make sure 100%. Trust me, this is going to look awesome. So now that we're at 100%, we're perfectly aligned as far as the center points of this. We know that mask was centered in After Effects. We know the iPhone is centered in Camtasia. I'm making the group match exactly the length of that 1 minute long ProRes file. And now I'm going to flip on a track mat, alpha mode. And what this will do is you can already start to see it. Look at the nice interplay of light and shadow here from that alpha track mat with this alpha footage out of After Effects. It's just beautiful stuff. And you can see it just affects the edge, the iPhone itself. Remember, track mats only affect the layer directly underneath them. So the lighting effects are just along the edges there. I'm going to go ahead and change the project canvas setting size to 4K so we can see the entire phone in all its glory here with that effect applied. And you can see, yes, indeed, that is traveling exactly along the edges of that mask, around the rounded corners, around the notch. It's looping nicely. So we've got a really nice effect. I think this can be used for a lot of stuff. We're going to go ahead and group this up now, and we're basically done here at this point. Group it up, turn off that track mat, add it to your library if you so choose to. Remember, it's 8 gigabytes. And reuse this piece over and over again. This is a cool effect, man. You can do all kinds of stuff with this. Intros, marketing pieces, just some pizzazz for your internal phone apps or web apps that you're building inside of a device frame here. And it doesn't need to be just an iPhone. Remember the principles. We learned how to do some things today. Learn how to use those techniques to bring in and supplement what you're doing in Camtasia. A hint, if you don't want this looping behavior like I was going for here, if you just taken that 2-second one time around, that file is going to be so much smaller, even in ProRes 4444. So keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to real briefly play a little bit more dressed up set of graphics that I did on top of this, along with animations. It's something that I'd probably refine a little bit more and then add to my library or make it a template, a project template file, so that it can be reused over and over again. But you get the idea of how powerful this is. And that's the whole point of using Camtasia along with these Pro Tools. Dip into the Pro Tools once in a while when you need a cool effect. Bring it over, incorporate it into Camtasia. Camtasia can handle track mats. It can handle alpha channel video. Bring that stuff over, make reusable assets that allow you to pump out high quality, really good looking content super fast. Because, you know, software is an ever-changing business. I know that firsthand. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I love so much making videos about Camtasia and some of my other favorite tools out there. And if you liked it, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe. Hopefully I'll be back soon to give you another tutorial. See you soon.